Good afternoon and welcome to Dodging the Cookie Cutter System, helping students design an individualized plan. I'm Sarah Goldammer along with Colleen Potter from the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center, your organizers today. We want to thank our partners, the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, who are using their platform to do this training. We want to especially welcome and thank our presenter today, Teresa Gia from Prairie State College. She's a transition specialist there. And I'm going to turn it over to Teresa in just a minute. But I want to let you know that she's going to share a ton of good information with you today. And she's generously also offered to answer questions and to share her resources. So if you have a question as we're moving along, please put it in the chat box or raise your hand. And then periodically, Teresa will stop and just check and see if there's some questions that she can answer for you. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Teresa. Teresa, thank you for sharing and welcome.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Well, hello and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining me on this cold winter day. This is my first webinar, so it's kind of bear with me as far as trying to gather the momentum. So the title of my presentation is Dodging the Cookie Cutter System, and as Sarah said, I am Teresa Gia, and I'm the transition specialist here at Prairie State. In this picture, actually, you see one of our students. I just want to share his story real quick because we are so proud of him. He's actually graduating this spring of 2018 with a biomedical engineer degree, transferring to the Illinois Institute of Technology, where he's going to further pursue that major. So we're really proud of him. So let's go with the theme, and let's start with gathering the ingredients. So we've all heard that it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village when we're helping adult education students. So not all the responsibilities in gathering and getting the students to transfer out of our adult education program will fall under the transition specialist. Here at Prairie State, we work as a team, and we start off with registration, and during the registration process, this is where we're going to start initializing the customized plan. With registration, we're taking in all their information, and we're actually introducing ourselves and letting them know that we're here to help and what our program is all about. And during orientation, we set the guidelines, we set the expectations. We have something called a student agreement, and on that student agreement, we have everything that the students are expected to do, and it's a two-part paper. So they keep a copy, and a copy is for us, so that in the event that they don't meet one of those agreements, we could always say, well, you did sign this, you knew what you were signing up for. So we like to stress that communication is key, and thus far it has really been a helpful tip for us, because our students are being retained more and they are communicating as well. A couple years back, we've had some issues with our younger students in the classroom. Some of them lacked the soft skills, and some of them didn't have the classroom etiquette. And then with them being in classrooms with older adults, it was very distracting. So we decided to create a second orientation for those individuals who are ages of 16 to 20 years old, and in those we did workshops for them. We did like a motivational segment, and we also did a classroom etiquette. It was facilitated by one of our faculties, and and we gave examples and things like that, and it has actually helped because it makes the classroom atmosphere flow a lot better. A lot of our students are coming in with like, oh, well, I'm a high school dropout. What is a high school diploma or a GED really going to do for me, besides give me a job at like a local, I don't know, factory? And so we like to show them that who's on their team. We're on their team. We're here for them to succeed. And we like to tell them that they're more than just a high school dropout, and that their GED could be more than just a GED. It could be a stepping stone to other future opportunities. So this is where the whole goal setting and customizing their individualized plan starts. So during the registration, they do get tested, and once they get their tests and everything's done, the coordinator and our student services specialist, they gather all their scores, and then I get a report. So I analyze their test results, and I meet with students who are on our higher levels, as well as students who are not scoring on those high tape scores. But I do speak to students with honesty. Um, it's nothing like, there's nothing like setting somebody up for success when you speak clearly and communicate that they can achieve that goal. However, if you're telling them, if we know that somebody's coming in at a reading level of a fourth grade reading level, you know they're not going to be able to pass that GED test by tomorrow. However, you can still empower them, and you can still encourage them to let them know that it's okay if you can't get the GED by tomorrow, but let's look at what other things we could put in your plan, maybe tutoring or extra help, so that we could get you to where you want to be. So another thing is to really listen to their story. A lot of our students, when I first started as a transition specialist, would come to me and start telling me things that I'm like, I didn't even ask for all that information. But, you know, a lot of the students, you know, share their information. And when they're sharing their stories, you can really understand why they left the school, or why it is that they want to study what they want to study. So once you listen to them and make that connection, they're more likely to continue to come to you for that help. And one thing that I forgot to mention, during registration and orientation, I like to make an announcement to my students, because this is going to be very specific for like your undocumented students and students who are under the DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. I like to tell them that, like, my office is like Las Vegas. What is said in my office stays in my office, and I'm not going to share that information with anybody. So I think that helps the students who are undocumented feel a little bit more comfortable coming out and saying, you know what, Ms. Gia, I am undocumented. Can you please help me? I don't know what to do, and what are my options, or what are my opportunities? So it kind of alleviates me from having to ask that question, because I also do speak about that at registration, that we want to make sure that we are helping the student to the best of our ability, so we need to communicate all that information that is needed. So then let's go ahead and preheat the oven now that we got our ingredients, right? So we recognize the student that you have in front of you, speak their language. Some of our students, you know, they don't like to use big words, as they call it, or they don't understand the whole navigation, the whole college system. So you speak their language and you put it in terms that they're going to understand. You can make them feel comfortable by maybe throwing in a joke, or, you know, giving them advice and helping them really understand that the career that they're choosing is for them. Ask questions like, okay, do you have kids? Do you work? Do you okay, so if a student, for example, if a student says that they want to study something in the medical field, do they like blood? Do they not like blood? So it's like really trying to understand the student, which is going to really help customize that individualized plan. And you're getting to know them. By getting to know them, they're going to be able to share information, and again, it's going to alleviate you having to ask the tough questions. An example of this would be if student A comes to your office and explains that she has been bullied all her life, and that is one of the reasons why she dropped out of high school and decided to obtain her HSE. That would be the time to identify her needs, to understand how best serve her and guide her, to identify her barriers and to benchmark her successes. Also consider an ongoing support to help you respond to changes in her educational plan. So if she was being bullied in high school, I'm not saying that, oh, we're a bully-free zone, because we all say that, but there's still some way, somehow, a bully always sneaks in. And so if that starts happening here, we can start identifying when that student's behavior starts to change. And so here, that's where you'll go on with the ongoing support to help them respond to the changes. Are we good so far? Is there any questions?
No questions so far.
Okay, so going on to the next. adding I have a cup of defined golden dream, right? So the type of students that we normally have is first generation students, bicultural, ESL, HSC, or they could be in both of our ESL and HSC courses, or students who are undocumented or documented, as I like to call them. Language is going to be very important. Make sure that we are talking to the student, not at the student. From feedback from previous students that I've had, that's always been a key. I've already stated this, you want to use language that they will understand. Explain what they might not know. So a lot of my first generation students don't know what a credit is. They don't know what non-credit means, or what accredited, what's the difference between being accredited and a credit course or non-credit. What is financial aid? If you are undocumented, if your parents are undocumented and you are documented, do you still qualify for financial aid? So I actually gave Sarah a handout of first generation terms that I pass out to my students so that they can understand what major means, what credit hours mean, what does a subsidized and unsubsidized loan mean. So it's just basic terms that everybody would think, oh, they have the basic knowledge of what college is all about, that they wouldn't. And it also includes terms in as far as WIOA and what the non-credit side of Prairie State can also do to help them. So I explain all that. We do that through workshops, one-on-one counseling and advising, and it's starting to help. Because even with the workshops, after the workshops that we do, I sit down with those students who attend the workshops on one-on-one, and I'm able to assist those students even further. An example would be a term, well, I already talked about this, sorry. These are all the other terms that I was talking about. So also, this is a good time to recognize their barriers. Now this is where we're going to start asking the tough questions. So like if the student is undocumented and they don't qualify for financial aid or have a job, what are we going to do for that student, and how could we help them? So we do, here at Prairie State, we do have scholarships for those who are undocumented, and we also do partner with a lot, like the Dream Action for the state of Illinois, and partner with them for scholarships for those students. And you sympathize with the student and making sure that they understand that even though you might not have gone through what they have gone through, that you understand that they're going through a struggle, but helping them get through that struggle is going to be the key. And then also show them that you care. Students could typically pick up on when you don't care and when you do care. And when you do care, trust me, they're going to be at your door every single day, and you're not going to have to worry about you meeting your outcomes as far as following up with the student, because before you could even call them to follow up to see how they're doing, they're already at your door telling you how great things are going or how they need help with something. Show your student the benefit of obtaining their HSC and the opportunities that will be available to them. So by doing so, you could give them the new door to their future, showing them that, you know, there are employment opportunities, there is vocational training, and there are credit courses that they could start taking. If, you know, the student might not have time to go to college right after they're getting their HSC, but they could benefit from a vocational trade. Okay. I'm sorry, the orange bubble kept popping up on me. I thought somebody had a question. We're good, right, Sarah?
Yeah, you're so good. Thanks, Teresa.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so the type of students that we have and the barriers. So first generation students, they might be academically college ready, but they still need the soft skills for college readiness. They have financial challenges. They have the racial disparity, the lack of self-esteem, lack of family support, and the lack of college adjustment. So for these students, I make sure that their individualized plan includes a lot of professional development and training especially for my students whose lack of family support, who might have their supportive parent or sister or brother, but everything else is stacked against them, where they're finally doing something with their life and they're looked at like they're trying to be better than the rest of their family. I've had a couple of students, struggle through that. So by, making sure that we are providing information for them of like how to manage that, we work with Sertoma, which is a counseling organization, and they really help out a lot with our students. So for the lack of college adjustment, we make sure that we sit down and talk to them on how to stack their classes. And if they are going to be working during college, we make sure that we schedule everything prior to choosing out their classes. The college readiness, what we do there is we have like a transitions academy where I go through everything with the student from point A to point D or B, I guess, or as we like to call it, up the hill. Once they are officially transitioned into our college program, I, make sure that they understand everything that needs to. For financial challenges, we make sure that their financial aid is completed. If they cannot get financial aid, that scholarship is completed. And if that's not possible, we try to find every single way that there is, if there's any extra money in the foundation, that they could help our students. As far as an undocumented students might have they might still have the same challenges as a first generation student, but on top of that, they're going to have more, like such as mode of transportation, because students who are typically undocumented do not have a driver's license. And once those students walk into my office saying that they don't have a driver's license, thank goodness a couple years back we got the TDVL, which is a temporary driver's license for those who are undocumented, approved in the state of Illinois. So I do help the students with letters of support and getting all the documentations that they need for those driver's license so the students can eliminate that barrier. For financial needs, we're also applying for financial aid, or not financial aid, but scholarships, and really understanding what career pathways they could go. Because if they are undocumented, they might not be able to become a nurse because they need that social security number to take their tests once they're done with the program, their national exam. So, it's really, again, going back to speaking to the student with honesty and letting them know that, if you don't think you're going to have a plan to become a resident, or some type of work authorization number in the United States, you're really not going to be able to pursue that career. And then you're really letting that student make an educated decision on what they would like to study. Language barriers, that's another thing. Here at Prairie State, we just started a academic English class for ESL learners. So this class is kind of like an additional class to their English 99 or English 101, so that they can get that extra support that ESL students need. The lack of institutional support. Sometimes institutions are not very open to saying that they're welcoming to undocumented students because of the political climate that we are in, but making sure that you show your student what type of support they do have at your local institution. So for my DACA students, right now, their barriers are going to be a little bit different, because since President Trump decided to repeal DACA and end it as of September 5th, or October 5th, I'm sorry, and it's slowly phasing out, these students are really living under uncertainty, and they don't know what's going to happen, because unlike an undocumented student, a DACA student does have a social security number, does have a driver's license, and does have authorization to work in the United States. So that student can pursue a nursing degree, or can pursue if they want to become a police officer, because they do have the social security to sit for those exams. However, they don't know what's going to happen after March, because if DACA does end for all, those students might not know what's going to happen, because now not only did they pay for school, because that's another financial need. These students don't fill out financial aid, so most of these students are paying out of pocket and with help of scholarships. So all this time and money invested into an education that could just be pulled out of their hands at any moment. So another thing is a lack of emotional support from the institution, really understanding those students. Faculty will be the ones that recognize it in their classrooms, because they're going to start seeing students, and I've had a lot of students walk in my office, break down crying, like not knowing what they're going to do when they find out what, it's like one of our students described it the best. It's saying like, hey, you walk into the doctor's office and they said you got 6 months to live. And it's, really like, okay, so what do I do now? Because it's slowly waiting to see what happens at that 6 months, which will be March. So moving forward, it's really understanding the student and helping them continue. So once you identify the student and who you're working with from the 3 students that I just described, and how you can help them succeed, is it getting back to school, knowing their possibilities, understanding how to get there, and achieving their goal. Begin to develop the plan. So what is their end destination? Once we identified all those barriers, identify what type of student they are, once we know who that student is, what is it that the student wants to do? And what are the steps to get there? And when will it be achieved? So let me go back real quick. So before I move on, I want to give an example. Okay, come on. Sorry. Okay, so I want to give an example as far as how do we begin to develop a plan. We have one of my current students wants to become a pediatric orthosurgeon, and so she's such a bright girl. She's placed in our higher level courses for the GED. She has taken we started off her plan with making sure she gets her HSE her GED first, and then moving forward. Once she got her 2 HSE tests part done, then we're going to continue moving forward with a new goal. So she accomplished the 2 exams. She's registered to take another 2 in December and in January. So we were able to help her get a scholarship to pay for the second 2 parts of her test. And now she's scoring in the 180s. So she's such a bright girl. So she knows she wants to go to medical school to become that. But before that, she has expressed to me how she works at Jewel's. It's a minimum wage paying job, and she doesn't get fulfillment. And so we were talking about all her different options that she could do. And then surgical tech came up because she wants to become a surgeon. And so once we looked into surgical technology, we started to see that it will take her 2 years to become a surgical tech before she could start working and things of that nature. And so it really wouldn't match up with the classes that she needs for her pre-med and her associates. So we talked about a shorter term certificate, which was our medical central service technology certificate, which allows her to become a sterile processing technician. And as a sterile processing technician, she's going to be learning everything all the instruments that goes for every type of surgery. And so this is something that she's going to do. So for right now, her plan is to finish the HSC by January and start we have referred her to our WIOA office, where she's going to be able to get a WIOA voucher to pay for her sterile processing class. And then she'll do her externship, and God willing, she'll get the job by September. And so she'll have a better job with a sustainable wage, where now she can start in the fall here at Prairie State for her pre-med degree. And from there, she'll be transferring out to the 4-year institution. So it's really understanding how everything could fit for your student. And then when I say listening to your student, it's very important that we're listening and understanding the difference between their passions and their interests, right? So like a passion is something you're disciplined, you're full-time about it, it's action oriented, and then your interest is like your half-hearted play, you do it on your free time and topic based. So I really like to speak to the students and ask them like, what are your passions? Like, what is something that you could do every day and not get paid for it? If all your bills were paid and everything was taken care of, what can you wake up and every day and say, this is what I want to do? Um, and we go from there. So, for example, I could say I have a passion for makeup, right? And the action verbs and having that passion for makeup would be applying it, testing it, studying it, developing it, branding it, and what are some descriptors of the makeup industry, or what are some of the careers that I could choose to go into the makeup industry. Could be occasional theater or occasional makeup, theater makeup, special effects, testing products before they are out on the market, reviewing the products, studying new trends in the cosmetic industry and developing new ones, developing new makeup. So my passion here would say either I love to make people feel good about themselves, or I like to create illusions, or I would like to create creative work, or I love to create science, so I would love to develop my own makeup, or I love to study people and the trends that are happening. So what are these feelings, what are the feelings that cause these passions? So it's curiosity, trust, anticipation, love, inspire, creativity. So once you mix those passions with feelings, you could get some career options. So what are some career options for that person, for that student that has a passion in makeup? And some are to become a makeup artist, a cosmetic chemist, a product reviewer, a marketing specialist, a developer. So when you're listening to your student, you're asking these questions. It's not like, oh, I have a passion for makeup. Okay, well then become a makeup artist. But you don't know if that student loves makeup but doesn't know how to apply it, or doesn't want to apply it for the rest of their life, but they love science. So that's where you could introduce them to becoming a cosmetic chemist and being that developer for them. Okay. So another example would be archaeology. Archaeology. So what are some passions in archaeology? So the student might have a passion for research, or digging for info, searching history, studying people, and what are the feelings? Maybe it's the adventure or the curiosity or the mystery. But maybe archaeology doesn't have a huge growing in the job sector or the job market. So what are other things that we could show, other career options that we could show that student that they could have? So some occupations could be an HR specialist, a detective, a researcher, a historian, a data analyst. So maybe, yes, they're interested in archaeology and those are their passions and the feelings, but once you put those together, you could really find a new list of occupations that the student now has options to go into. Another one would be healthcare. So if a student's passion is making a difference, they love being on the front lines, they love providing a level of care. So what are some of those feelings that are caused by those passions? To feel important, trustworthy, significant, and helpful. So some of those occupations that they could become is clinical medical assistant, emergency medical technician, or a nurse. So this is really bringing everything together. So I want to give you guys some more examples of how we um, like to have that set up that career pathway for those students, especially now that we're introducing ICAPS into our courses and giving those students those options of doing those short-term vocational certificates to get employment and to still have a pathway to continue on to a further education. So for a clinical side on the healthcare, they could start off with their high school equivalency exam. They could go on to becoming a certified medical assistant, which here at Prairie State is a 3-month program. And then while they are CMAs and while they are working as a CMA, they could always come back to school and become an LPN from there they could go on and become an RN, and if they want to continue to become even more successful, they could be the lead registered nurse. On a non-clinical side, say your student doesn't like to deal with the patients, this is actually, this pathway was the example I gave from my student who is going to get her high school diploma, her high school equivalency diploma, and then from there get her sterile processing technician. And she's not going to go into the surgical tech program, but she's more so going to do the pre-med and then go on to surgeon. So once the plan is created, we do a 3, 6, 9, 12 follow-up. Once our student follows through finishing their HSE, I make sure that they're set up with their next steps in their plan, and then I follow up with their 3 months after they are post, because now we are required by the grant. So after 3 months, I check up on them, see how they're doing, if they have any questions, if they lose their job, or whatever it may be, and then I do it again at 6 months, 9 months, and then after a year. And then we always assist along the way, because if a student at 6 months loses their job, we want to make sure we are able to help them get back. And here are some pictures from our most recent graduation for our students. And yeah, so the last is sweet success. So I like to make sure that we are empowering our students and giving them all the information that they need, so when it's time for them to make their final choice, that they are making an educated choice on them. That's the end of my presentation. However, I do want to show, because a lot of people have asked me how I track my students, because there's no field in DAISY just yet. So the example that you're looking at right now is how I track the post-secondary education students. So you put their first name, last name, student ID, phone number, email, and I like to put their assessment type, their birth date, just so that I can match records. It's a very big Excel sheet. And then we talk about their ALEX tests, which is like the compass test, but that's what we do. The school that they go to, if they're financial aid eligible, and if they are, when they did it, if they apply for a scholarship, and then their major, along with if they are enrolled full-time or part-time, and who their academic advisor is. And then here's where I keep my track of my 3, 6, 9 1-year follow-up. And then so that when we do have to export this, we can. And it's the same thing for the vocational or tech certificates. I do the same thing. These are empty because I made 2 different master copies so that I could send it out to you guys. If you guys would like to use this, you're more than welcome to. Again, it's still the same information, but here the only difference is once they achieve their GED, were they a WIO or referral, yes, or what other funding source they used, the program of study, the orientation date, when they got their WIO voucher, the day that the program started, the day when they completed the program, and if they got an internship, where they got that internship or externship, the date that they started employment, where they were employed, and then still with the same thing, 369 follow-up. Same thing goes for employment. If a student gets their GED and decides not to do a vocational certificate nor a post-secondary degree, then it's just making sure that they are keeping their job, and it's still the same thing. So the date of resume help, we put that in there, who the person was referred by, where they applied, interviewed by, interview dates, hired, the date of hire, occupation, and the 369 follow-up. So that's how I keep track of all those students. And then I also, for my post-secondary students, I like to give them their own advising guide, where they're keeping track, to make sure that they're keeping track of the classes that they are taking. We go over their advising degree or advising recommendation from the college for the classes that they need for that major, and then we make sure that they are taking the classes necessary for those different types of majors, and then they're not taking classes that are not required for their program. And then let me see. Okay, show that. Here's another meet your major worksheet that I created. Again, it's really getting your passions and feelings aligned with different career options. So these are just, so if you're like a business guru, you want to go into entrepreneurship, marketing, finance, management. So these are just other examples that I've also shared with Sarah if she would like to pass those forward or forward those to anybody who would like to use them. This is what I call my sign-in sheet. This is what well, besides the clipboard I have on my desk, when students come in, they will sign their name, and on that sign-in sheet I have the date they came, their name, their phone number, the reason why they came. The phone number is going to be very important because if you will notice, a lot of our students change number on a daily basis. It might be a different number by the next time when they register, and then when they actually start classes, they might have a whole new number by then. So they always put in their phone number, what the reason is, whether they came in person or I spoke to them on the phone, and then the time they came in and the time they left. So that's what they fill out. And what I fill out is this, like, I like to call it like a doctor checkup report. It's just basically putting their date, the name, the first name, and the program that they're in and the reason for their visit, and then we talk about it, and then we put any special notes, the next scheduled appointment, and what is needed for that. So that way, you know, like if a student came in and got all the information they needed for their financial aid, the next appointment will be to bring in their parents' taxes and things of that nature, so that you know that that's what the student is coming for, and it helps you keep better track of those students. I've also shared that document. So with that said, are there any questions?
Yes, we do have one. Karen wants to know, how many students are you typically keeping track of on these spreadsheets?
Typically, we get about 400 students and a semester. Actively, I keep track of most of the students that are transitioning. So it could vary anywhere between 50 to 150 students at a time. But I still have to keep track of all our students for DAISY purposes, as far as goals, like the entered employment, if they entered employment, or if they retain their employment, or if they obtain their GED. Those are like the easier goals to keep track of.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. It looks like we have another question. Oh, Karen says thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? And as you're thinking about questions, I will mention Teresa has all these great handouts, and if you participated today, then you will receive these emailed to you, all of them that you can use if you wish, or make them your own. Lori wants to know, do you update spreadsheets through phone interviews or only in person?
Through phone interviews as well, because sometimes not all students could get in to see me. I forgot to mention that I make my students make appointments with me. I think that keeps me organized, and it also shows the students soft skills of, like, you can't just show up to somebody's office and expect everybody, them to drop everything they need that they're doing just to help you. So when we make appointments, it also gives them the responsibility that they have to show up somewhere. So if they can't come in physically for an appointment with me, we can schedule an appointment over the phone, and I do update my spreadsheets over the phone.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. And yes, and Lori says thank you as well. Anybody else have any questions for today? Sandy says, the last form you showed us, was it used during or after transition?
The last form, this one, the sign-in sheet.
Is that right, Sandy? Yes. Yes.
I use this every day. I use this form every time I have an appointment with a student. Um, and this form helps me keep track of their individualized plan through the semester. So, like for example, say Johnny came in and he's a ASC student and he needs career service and post-secondary advice. I write down what we talked about that day and that what he needs for the next appointment. And then when he comes in, I have folders for each one of my students aside from what we have and is mandated to have through ICCB. And I keep everything in their folder, so I go off of that. It's just like I said, it's just like a printout, and then I give one printout to the student in case I'm not here and they're supposed to bring papers back. They could just show that paper to one of my colleagues and they'll know what to do with it.
All right, thank you. And then do you have a transitions policy or something for them to know what the late policy is?
Say that one more time because it cut out.
So do you have a policy, like a late policy? Do you have a transitions policy so that they know what is late, what the late policy is?
So what's my policy for what? I'm sorry.
For being
I'm having I don't know, it's saying that I have low connectivity.
Oh, okay. And all right, let me know if I'm accurately portraying your question. It says to know what the late LATE policy is.
So what the late policy is for a student to be transitioned, or what type of policies we have in our student agreement? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so she just clarified if they're late for their appointment.
If they're late for oh no, I like to tell them all the time. If they're late for their appointment, they have to call me, like let me know, hey, I'm running late, or hey, I'm not gonna make it. Because I've told students, like, do not schedule an appointment with me and not show up, because that would be the last time. And I know that sounds very cruel and mean, but I think it's those skills that our students need. And I haven't had a student complain. If anything, they're more so like, let me call Ms. Gia and let her know that I'm running late. Because some of my students are my night students, and I have children, so if I need to be here later, I need to set up a babysitter so that I know that my daughter's taken care of. And that way, if I'm waiting for you, I expect you to be here. And I do mention that at orientation. So if a student is running late or cannot make it, they really do, they really communicate with me and call me. But in the event that they don't call me and they don't show up, I give them a call and say, hey, what happened to you? And then we go from there. But most of the time, my students are really good at letting me know they're running late or they can't make it.
Okay, thank you.
So as far as like a specific policy, I really, besides me telling them I'm not gonna wait for them anymore, they're gonna have to come in whenever I'm here. Yeah, no, I don't have a specific policy.
Sounds like your policy is be considerate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically.
Yes, and they say thank you for answering those questions. Any other questions? We'll give just a minute for you to think of any other questions you might have before we wrap up today. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Is there any final words you have, Teresa?
No, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
And thank you for sharing. We really appreciate it, and we'll make all of those handouts available to you. And others are saying thank you as well. So everybody have a great day, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thank you.